Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to show you guys how to wire a three-way switch, or in this case, I guess multiple three-way switches, because that's how they work. You need at least two of them. I've heard some people call these two-way switches. There's no such thing. It's actually called a three-way switch. They can be switched from two different locations, but they're called three-way switches. Now, I have my switch boxes really close together with my light over here. Obviously just to make everything fit in the video nicely, but in reality you might have one switch here, you might have the second one on the other side of your room somewhere, and they both control that one light or multiple lights, but they both control the whole set of lights, for example in that living room or whatever room it is. Or they can control a ceiling fan, they can control a receptacle, it doesn't matter whatever load you have here, but you can have two switches controlling that same load. I won't be showing you guys how to secure boxes or how to run your wire, nothing like that. No stapling, drilling holes. I've got mine pre-wired. I just want to show you how to actually splice your wires properly and attach them to your switch to make everything work, to save time. So I'm going to show you three different methods of how you can wire three-way switches. The first one is going to be your power coming into your first switch box, a 3-wire from here to the next switch box, and then just a 2-wire up to your load. In my case, this is going to be a light over here. The second method is your power coming into your first switch box, and then 3-wire up to this light box, and then a 3-wire down to the last switch. And the third method is going to be the power coming into your light, and then a 3-wire down to one switch and a 3-wire down to the next switch. Now the proper way, according to electrical code, is to have your power coming into your first switch, 3-wire to the next, and your light will be the last thing in your circuit. The reason for this is, in this method you're going to have a neutral in all of your switch boxes, which is what you need to have to follow Canadian electrical code. The other two methods I'm going to show you also, because if you're ever doing a remodel renovation in your house, you might see the wiring in one of these other methods, because maybe back when the house was wired, that was code, it was allowed, and now it isn't. So this way, if you ever see anything else, it's not going to look weird to you. You'll know kind of what you're looking at, and it'll help you to troubleshoot or maybe just to rewire something. So before I get started though, I just want to show you a three-way switch. So I'm following Canadian electrical code standards. I want to show you a three-way switch that's spec'd to Canadian standards. You'll see the black common screw right over here, and you'll see the brass other two screws right here. One here, one here. These are your travelers, okay? And you'll notice there is no bonding screw on the Canadian spec'd switches. So before you begin commenting that I forgot to bond it, there is no bonding screw here. In Canada, we're allowed to cut off that bond if we wanted to. First of all, we need to bond it to the box, obviously, to the screw, but then we can cut off the excess, and we don't need to bond our switch because it's already bonded through the metal box. And if we were using a plastic box, the plastic box actually has a metal bonding tab. And I've got a plastic box to show you here, just so you know. Plastic box, you see this metal bonding tab kind of running up and over here. And this is where the screw of your switch would attach to. And that'll carry the bond all the way back to the panel. Okay, so on to the good stuff. This is what you came here for. I have my power wires coming into my first switch box. I have a 3-wire running from here to the next switch box. And then I have my two wires running up to my light box. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I've got my bonds attached to the screws. Like I said, in Canada we can cut off the excess, and that's still according to code. If you're in the US, you probably want to save this. You might want to fold it back. Even in Canada, you can just fold the wire back if you want to keep it, because if you ever want to put a dimmer switch on here, you will need to bond it. So instead of finding that screw and attaching the wire to the screw, you've already got this here that you can just put a wire nut on it. So when you're wiring this, you got to realize that Our light is the last thing in this circuit, okay? This neutral has to come back through both of these switch boxes and all the way back to the panel. So this is our neutral. Here it is. It's coming down to here. What I want to do is I want to attach these neutrals. I'm going to splice these. I'm not actually twisting my wires because these are just temporary connections. I'll just put a wire nut on them just so you know how it's done. So I need my neutral to carry through. At the first switch box, I need my neutral to carry through and back to the panel. We're not using neutrals on our switches. They can just splice right through the box. So I'll just move them out of the way. Okay. My black hot wire will attach to the black common screw on my switch, like this. Okay. The black and the red from the 3-wire are called travelers. Okay. They carry the power. It's like a switch leg. They carry the power either down the black or down the red wire, but only one at a time, depending which way the switch is flipped. Whether you turn it this way or this way, it'll switch which of these wires carries power. Okay, so I'm attaching the red and the black from my 3-wire. Just going to tighten this up a little bit. It was moving a bit. The red and the black, they can go to the brass screws, okay? It doesn't matter if the red goes here, the black goes here, or if the black goes here, red goes here, it doesn't matter, it'll work the same. So I'll just put the black here. I'll put the red on this side. Okay. And typically you would fold these wires into the box, screw it in, but because I'm just trying to save time and I'm going to be rewiring them anyways, I'm not going to do that. I'll just leave it loose, okay? Second switch. Now remember, this red and black are my travelers from here. So they're also going to go to the brass screws. Again, doesn't matter which brass screw. They can go to either one, but they got to go in the brass screws, okay? Now this other black that goes up to my light, this is going to go to this other common black screw right here. And this is my switch leg that carries the power up to my light. Okay, so that's how we wire these. And obviously I'm just going to attach a light to this so we can see it working. I've got this lamp holder over here. It's very simple. There's no, typically your light would have a bonding wire, but this one, it's just a black and a white, no bonding. This is just rubber right here. So I'm not going to use my bonding wire up in that octagon box. I'm just going to attach my whites and my blacks. I'm going to turn this power on and show you how the 3-way switch works. Okay, so I have my first switch. Right now, both switches are off. I walk into the room, I turn this on, light turns on. I walk through the room to the other side, I'm walking out, I turn off the second switch. Light turns off. Next person comes into the first doorway, flips this on, leaves the room, flips this one off, or comes back in, flips the same one back on. Either way, no matter which configuration you're doing, they all work. The second method I want to show you guys, the power will come into your first switch, and then a 3-wire up to the light, and a 3-wire to the next switch. So if you want to think about it physically, when you walk into a room, you have a switch right next to you that has the power coming in, your 2-wire power coming in, and then maybe you thought it was a smart idea to just run a 3-wire up to the light and a 3-wire down to the last switch. This method probably doesn't meet code because you don't have a neutral in every switch box, but I'll show you how to do it anyways, just because you may come across it in your electrical journeys. Maybe you're working on a reno house or whatever, and this is how it was wired. When you see it, you'll know what you're looking at. So Once it starts getting a little bit more complicated like this, to help me understand it myself when I'm splicing the wires together, I like to start with my neutral wire. So I know that my light up here, I know that this light needs a neutral back to the panel, so I'm going to start with this. The only neutral I have here is this one right over here that comes back to my first switch, okay, because that's where the power is. So this will be my neutral. Get this out of the way, all right? Which means these are my neutrals here, because this white off the 3-wire comes from the light, and I want to take it back to my panel, okay? Splice these together, push them up, fold them into the box, okay? Now I have 3 wires left. What I'm going to do is the black power wire will go to my black common screw. My red and black travelers will go to my brass screws. This switch is done. And it doesn't really matter if it's top or bottom, I guess. Like it'll work the same no matter which way you orientate this switch. But I typically like having my 2 screws on the right side, and this switch actually does say top. Okay, so again, it'll still work the same, but I prefer just kind of having these 2 screws on the right side. Next step, what am I doing here? So my red and black travelers that came from that first switch, that's these guys here, they're in the top of my box, okay? They came from this switch, so I know they're travelers. And if I attach them to these other travelers that go down to this box, then I have this extra white. The white will have to carry my power up. So to avoid that, I'm going to turn this red and white, I'm going to make them become the travelers. So I'll attach this red to red. And I'll attach my white to the black, because these are travelers again. Okay, there is no neutral here, so this white is not a neutral. Okay, it's just a 3-wire coming down. It's not a neutral, so that's why I've got to attach to this black here. Travelers coming in on the black and red. Travelers going out to this switch on the red and white. And then what I'll do on the switch end here, so since my red and white are now travelers, I'm going to put them on the brass screws. And my black, which is going to carry the switch leg up, will go on my black common screw. Fold this up nicely into the box. Okay. Now the only wire left here is this black that comes from that last switch. It'll carry the power up to my light. And when I turn these on, I'm going to power it up. When I turn the switches on, it'll work. There you go. The third method I'm going to show you, and I don't know, maybe the most confusing one, I guess you decide, I guess. The power wires come into this light box. Then we have a 2-wire coming down to our first 3-way switch. And then we have a 3-wire between 3-way switches. Okay, so we only need a 3-wire between switches, not the actual light itself. Like I said before, to make it a little bit easier, let's take care of our neutral first. So here's my light. I know that this is my source coming in, so this is my neutral back to the panel. We'll take care of this so it's less confusing for us. Okay, the neutral is done. We don't have to worry about it anywhere else because these switches will not have neutrals. Okay, next thing you want to do, the power coming in will go to your white. This white will carry power down to your first switch. And honestly, you might want to put some black tape on this white just to indicate that it's not a neutral, it's taking power, it's hot. It comes down to this first switch, okay? The power comes on the white. I'm going to take this, put it on the common screw on my first switch. I'm going to take my red and white, use them as travelers. Okay, so there's no confusion. In the future, you open this up and scratch your head. Take some black tape, put it on that white that's actually carrying power. And maybe run it along the full length if you can, but I'm just going to do it quickly here. So, like this, okay? On the last switch, actually back to the first one, this black is going to come from here and carry power up to our light. So what we're going to do on the last switch, our red and white travelers, remember we use the red and white as travelers from here. So we're going to do the same thing at the last switch. My black will go to the common screw. This here, there's only a 3-wire in here. This is typically what we would call a dead end or a end of line circuit kind of. So this is done. Now this black is right here. It carries the power. Once the switch is closed, it carries the power up to this guy here. So what you want to do with these guys is just splice them and push them into the box. They're not actually going to be attached to your first switch, okay? So these get spliced, pushed into the box, and this is that one right there. So this is what we put to our light. Okay, so again, just a quick review. We took care of our neutral first from our source wire right here. Okay, then we send the black power down this white wire to this first switch. That white wire was on our common black screw. And then the 3-wire, the red and white from the 3-wire goes to the here. Okay, the black carries the power to here and up to here to our light. So when I power this up, our switches will also work. So using this method, same thing, still works. And again, that's just another method. There are even more methods to wiring this. You can begin using 4-wire to start carrying neutrals down, but that's not typical in residential wiring. If you have a chance to rewire something from scratch, definitely use the first method so that you have neutrals in your switches. But if not, if you're just kind of working with something old already installed, this is at least one of the methods you might see, or the second one. If you encounter those, then at least you'll know what you're working with. As always, I enjoy making these videos and being able to share my knowledge, and I appreciate it when you guys hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. If you have any comments, any questions, or just maybe something you want to point out that I maybe forgot to mention, do that in the comments section to help your other fellow YouTubers out. Whoever's reading this, maybe they'll get some pointers off it. See you next time.